Hello, everyone, and welcome to the World Explorer podcast. This is the podcast where each and every week, me and my friend Isaac take a random prompt and create a wonderfully fun, weird, cool, who knows what world out of it. So I think we're just going to jump straight into it.
So, you remember a while back when we created the Fear Door world? It was a world basically made out of one's fears.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites.
Yes. So I decided, let's do that again. Except this time again. Except this time around, this is going to be an entire world of fear. Like there is no leaving this world like there was with the Fear Door. And the way that this one works, it is different. I was imagining it for some reason as a world of like this red fog covering just about everything, somewhat of a barren wasteland practically everywhere. And as soon as you step into this red fog, it sort of takes over your mind, and your fears begin manifesting around you.
So, like, Narnia Dawn Treader?
Yes, that's actually pretty much exactly what it is. It's like the Dawn Treader. And I was
for those who don't know what that is, in Narnia, in whatever book the Dawn Treader is, they're on a ship and they're traveling and they enter into like this horrible fog thing, and then all of their worst fears start like manifesting themselves. It's a great chapter that was not very well done in the movie.
The fog actually, I don't think was in the book at all.
Was it not? No, the fog's in the book. I've read the book relatively recently. The fog's there. I think it's...
Yeah, it's been too long since I've seen the movies or read the books. Anyway, we got this world of fog and fear. You step into it, you take, and your fears begin manifesting. Now, I'm thinking practically the entire world is covered in this fog, and I imagined these cities and sanctuaries where the fog wasn't, and the fog couldn't get in for some reason. And
you mean like high areas? Like, is this a fog that kind of hangs low down?
I actually imagined it even being high up, but there were just these locations where the fog wasn't. And that was something where I started world building and trying to think of a reason why wouldn't they be entering these certain locations. But then I thought I should probably stop so that we can figure this out during the podcast.
Yeah, don't world build before, we give a chance at it. So this horrifying fog spreads everywhere. I don't know, it's almost feels like you need like a thing representing like happy dreams and goodness. I mean, I think of the classic dream catchers again, or something, or even like that shape, like nets. Like a weirdly shaped wall that's intertwined with like magic and happy thoughts that ward off the evil fog.
I was just watching Gravity Falls, so unicorn hair is what came to my mind.
That's an interesting. So like the material itself is like imbued with this magic that would ward them off, and the people of this land has learned that there are some animals that seem unaffected by the fog, or that the fog seems to avoid. So say like if a unicorn is a common animal in this world and it shows up, the fog kind of like runs away from it. And from that, they were able to, for one, want to kind of stay close to the unicorns. So the unicorns kind of offered them like a protective shield, almost like
okay,
having
I'm not
a
saying
pet
that we have to use unicorns, just so you know.
But I know. I'm feeding off of this, all right? And unicorns was the first thing you said, so I'm rolling with it. So they like hang out with the unicorns, and then they learn that they can create like barriers and walls with like unicorn hair and things like that. Maybe we'll want a bigger animal that's easier to harvest, like a magic sheep or something that you can easily make wool out of. And then they've learned that the way they can make these like thread, maybe mats almost, and they can space the mats out on the floor, and the fog will just stay away and avoid them. And from that way, they can have a bunch of these mats on the floor and like make giant areas that make them feel safe.
Okay. Before we world build exactly like how people would defend against this fog, or what sort of thing would stop the fog, we have to maybe first figure out how does the fog work? Like, what does it do exactly to cause people to have their fears manifest, and how does it work? Is it purely a trick of the mind? I don't think that's fun. I think it should be an actual physical, real thing that appears, because if it's a trick of the mind, it's not going to be that threatening or that deadly.
Some nightmares kill.
That's true, but I'm thinking it's not nearly as interesting as I have a fear of serpents, and so this gigantic serpent appears to kill me.
So actually, going back to a question that we asked in the Fear Doors world, is this one where like the fears that manifest actually have to be physical? I'm assuming they can't actually be psychological fears, like watching your friend die or things like that. I think this one is one where it's really confined to like your physical fear. Like it can't make you go on a tall building or anything and like push you off, but it can make like spiders create, or a mass murderer person, or monsters and things like that. But it can't physically move you or change the environment around you. It can only create things that can move you and can change the environment around you. So,
I mean, if you're scared of the dark, I guess it'll just block out the sun.
It can do that. Yeah, I could see it doing that and stuff.
Yeah.
But
it could, anything physical, really, it can do. But
I don't think it can like make you have a life-threatening disease or anything like that.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. I mean, if you're extremely scared of some particular illness or just illnesses in general, perhaps then it might be able to affect you, because that's still a physical thing.
True. I mean, I guess it can create the parasite.
Yeah, I mean, if you're deathly afraid of a certain disease, that disease I could absolutely see it affecting you. Now, when
it depends on the disease, because like some diseases are caused by like parasites and things, which is something that fog could actually create. But other things like cancer are created by a mutation in yourself, and I'm not sure it can. How much of like an effect can it have on the person's body? Like if you're scared of losing a limb, can it chop your limb off?
I don't think it can go that far. I don't think it can directly.
So it probably can't give you cancer, but it can give you the flu or
like
if the bubonic plague, it can give you the plague.
Yes, because what it's doing is it's just sort of having the bacteria travel into your body. But if you're scared of something like, say, acne, like you're deathly afraid of getting pimples, it can't just make pimples appear on your face.
Yeah.
So it can give you the bubonic plague, it can give you the flu, it could give you measles, but it can't give you pimples. Yep. That's the power of this fog.
Yeah, that's where it could kill you instantly, but it cannot give you pimples. That's great. Yes. It's such a weird line, but it's a logical line. Like it doesn't sound like it is, but I think it makes a lot of sense that's where its limit lies. Like it creates living things and physical things, but it doesn't change the environment or you.
Yeah.
It just creates new entities based off of your fears.
So does the fog work in a way where it affects your mind by perhaps like somehow coming into contact with it by like you inhaling the fog and breathing it, so you could get in with a gas mask and be fine? Or is it a matter of just standing in it causes it to affect you?
Yeah, so the idea of like, I almost feel like it does have to enter into you because it has to have access to your thoughts somehow. I don't know if it's like the idea of telekinetic fog would mean that something like the cities would almost be kind of pointless, because as long as the fog can get even a little bit close to you, then it can still create your fear. You don't have to stand into it. Unlike when you go into it, then it actually, like maybe it has to physically touch you. Like if you go in just fully covered, the gas mat and all that stuff. I mean, the gas masks, the way they work is that they filter out air. So I don't know how effective filtering out the fog would be. But if you decided, you know what, we're just gonna completely cover up and possibly suffocate ourselves and race through the fog on a mad dash, I could see them trying to do that. but that'd probably be about it.
I just thought of something. What
Yes.
if the fog could create these illusions and just mind tricks, essentially things that people they can see but they can't touch. But the thing about these items or creatures or whatever it is that the fog creates is that you can they're all things that you are not necessarily afraid of. So the fog can create anything, but if it's not something that you are afraid of, it is just an illusion. However, if you see the illusion and you suddenly become afraid of it, thinking that it's real, it becomes real.
Oh, so you almost have to like train yourself to be not scared of whatever weird thing happens?
Yes. And then you have to sort of look within yourself and think, okay, am I afraid of this thing? How much fear level do I have? Is this actually a legitimate threat to me? But in that process, you're probably thinking that because you are scared of it. That's
Yeah.
the thing.
So, you go out there and you see a little bunny and you're like, oh, that's so cute. And you just move on with your life and then it fades away. But then you see something like a giant snake trying to bite you and you're like, ah, and then suddenly it can actually bite you.
Yeah. So something I was thinking
So
about
it's
was
less.
maybe the fog remembers people who have gone in and it knows what your fears are, but then it starts experimenting with similar illusions to try and get you to fear more things so that it can continuously create these things.
Less actually about, getting the thoughts out of people's minds and more about just experimenting with like scary things. So it's just constantly it's learning, it's
Yes.
adapting to the people that come in. So it notices that things with like grotesque features tend to be scarier than something that's fluffy. So they don't make as many fluffy things. They've noticed that the more legs they add on to it, the creepier they are. But then they realize, oh, but at this point, people stop being scared of it and start kind of laughing at it because it's got too many legs, and things like that. Like learning the limits between what's too scary and what's not, and that different people have different responses, and it has to try constantly. So it doesn't actually have access to your thoughts. It's just got access to a library of experiments that it's done in the past.
Yeah, that could work too. 'Cause my original idea was that it was just using whatever your normal fears were as a baseline, and then trying to manifest similar things based on what an individual fears. But as having a library of things that people are generally scared of, I think that could work too. And I
And I
think
think this is a more interesting idea in the sense of powering out the fog, like why motivation for the fog, like why it wants to do this. Because it looks like kind of like the fear door. It's feeding off people's fears to be able to create actual physical things. Like it can create as many illusions as it wants, but if it wants the things it creates to be real, then it needs to draw power from people's fears. So it needs more of an emotional response than a mental response, and it can connect with that instead of like memories and ideas and stuff, and then it just stores those away and does its best to like mass produce them by exposing those who enter the fog to them.
yeah. And I'd say that if
It's
it's some
plotting
sort
against the
of
cities.
I'd say that if you've got some sort of massive centipede-like monster that goes to attack someone, that in many cases probably wouldn't do anything because a lot of people would say, "Well, I can tell that's very clearly not a real thing. I've never seen that before, so I have no reason to fear it." And then it ends up just being an illusion to that person. However, snakes are very real. They really do fear snakes, even though they know that the fog has created a snake in front of them. That snake is still real, and they cannot get rid of that snake unless they overcome their fear of snakes.
Yeah, and then it makes like traveling through the fog less of a suicide mission and more of a, I don't know, it could almost be a coming of age thing. Like they send their 18-year-old kids out into the fog for a night to see if they survive, see if they're strong enough to fear, or you have a group of people who it's their task to send messages between city entering into the fog of fear and stuff like that. which I think is very good for storytelling wise, is that this fog fear is just it's it does make it less dangerous, I feel, but it also makes it more, I know, believable that people are living there, like are living with it and accepting that this is a thing, other than like, you know, a giant fear fog and you sit there going like, how did these people even survive enough to make houses to do it? You know, you come in there and your biggest fear is this. It also makes sense why like it wouldn't do sicknesses and diseases that would be mass contagions, because you might be afraid of them, but you're never going to be able to see them, and therefore they can't really be real. So as long as you don't think about it, then like as long as you're not going through the fog thinking like, oh, I really hope I don't get sick on this trip from this very specific disease or something or things like that, then, you know, as long as you're not sitting there dwelling on the fear of being sick, then you're not going to get sick by the fog.
I mean, I think you could still get sick by the fog even if you're not thinking about it, because it's still a thing that you fear, even if it's not in front of your mind. Like, I'm not constantly thinking about my fears, but whatever they may be, I'm still afraid of them. I'm just not thinking about them.
Yeah, but the thing is, I think in order for these things to manifest is that fear has to be present in that moment. So there could be one, you know, idiot who went out like, I'm scared of the bubonic plague, and is thinking about it in the fog, and it's like the fog is registering that and like making it very real and then allowing it to exist, and next thing you know, an entire village is wiped out by this fog.
Okay, so now this is exactly like the fog from Narnia.
Is it? The Narnia?
Yeah, because that's how it worked. It was so long as you thought about your fear, then it would become a reality. The idea that we were originally going with was it just sort of makes it whether you're thinking about it or not.
Yeah, well, yes, but like the thing that makes it real though is you registering that this thing is in front of you and you're scared of it in the moment. Like you need a physical fear response in order to give it real power. The difference between this and like the Narnia fog and even the Fairy Door is that anything can come out of the fog. It might not be something you're afraid of, but it's something the fog is going to try to make you afraid of in the moment, because it needs your fearful response in order to make this thing it's created solid and real. And I guess like other people can see it. Is that what happens? Like if two people go in there, they both might see different things, but only one of them might be. But you know, you're going in there and you have one person who's very well aware of like what the fog's like. See something jump out, it's like, yep, that's a thing. Sure, have fun with that. But the person next to them isn't fully aware of what's going on. Something jumps out of them. They have a fearful response, and next thing you know, the other person suddenly starts seeing this thing materialize, and it's like, oh shoot, and realizes kind of what's happening. Is that a thing that happens, or is it that both people see the same illusion and they both have like the same chance of making it real?
I was thinking that it was the latter, where it's both people can see the same illusion, but if only one of them makes it real, it's real for both of them. So even if I'm not afraid of snakes and there's a snake crawling around on the ground, if you are afraid of snakes, you make it real. Well, now there is a very real snake in front of me. I might still not be afraid of it though, but it's still there and it's still real. Now, if there were suddenly 1,000 snakes around us and they were all real because you're afraid of snakes, I'm not, then that is something that could pose a real threat to us. Whereas one snake, it's like, step on its head, chuck it away, you're done. You're done. Like, but 1,000 snakes, that's a problem.
Yeah. It seems like a very interesting like mentor with mentee going into there, and the mentee's like scared of things and is like manifesting things, and you have like this rugged mentor who's like, oh my goodness, get a grip, like just kills the snake and throws it away and looks at them and says, look, these things aren't real unless you make them real, and just keeps marching through the fog and forcing you to keep up with them. Just like a fun dynamic. I love that dynamic. It's one of my favorites in stories.
Yeah, but thing is, that's again another thing where it's these things aren't real unless you make them real. However, even if you know that doesn't change the fact that you're still scared of snakes and you can't help it.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess it kind of depends on like what ideology you hold on to.
However, actually, if the mentor were to step on the snake's head and chuck it away, the mentor could then say, there, look, snakes aren't a problem. They aren't anything to be feared. You step on their head, you grab them behind the head, like on the neck, you chuck them away. Like, they can't do anything when you hold them like that. All they can do is wrap their tails around you. Like, it's a little bit dangerous, but it's not too much to be afraid of. And if they do look venomous or something, one option is don't approach the snake. Like, that's the best case scenario, is don't approach the snake. Just tell the person that, and to try and get them to not be afraid of snakes anymore. Now, that's not going to work on everybody, but for some people, it will. Some people might be able to sort of overcome their fear by just either ignoring a snake or by taking it on.
Logicking your way out of fears. Like, this thing isn't actually scary if it can't hurt me.
Exactly. Like, even if it is real, it can't hurt me. And then at that point, fear no longer applies. Like, the fog can no longer hurt you with snakes. Now, people do have, like, phobias of things that might be a little bit harder to overcome. Like, I can stomp on as many spiders as I want in front of somebody with arachnophobia. They will still be panicking. It doesn't matter how much I try to explain to them. Spiders are not that big of a threat. Practically none of them are actually deadly venomous. They aren't going to kill you. Depending on where you are in the world, there aren't even any that will kill you.
And then you pick it up with your bare hands and you hold it up to them and you say, actually, they're quite cute. Look at their little eyes. And then they start screaming and running away from you. And you're like, oh.
So this is a
sort and then they call you names.
This is a sort of instance where, like, even the mere sight of a spider can maybe trigger somebody's arachnophobia. Now, the fog at that point could take advantage of somebody like that and say, I'm going to create a giant spider.
Or an army of spiders.
Yeah, and so now, I was using the example of a giant spider because the giant spider is something that's very clearly not real, that any normal person anybody who doesn't have arachnophobia could look at that and say, oh, I'm not afraid because it's obviously an illusion. But anyone with arachnophobia who just can't stand the sight of spiders is gonna see that and freak out. Even though they know it's not real, but it very clearly is now because they got afraid of it like the moment they saw it.
Yeah. I mean, there's also like the element of jump scares.
Yeah, that's something I actually want to...
I feel like the fog is a very good jump scare. Like, if you fall for jump scares, you will not be allowed in the fog. Because I think another thing about the fog that people do have to keep in mind, and probably even increases like the fear aspect of it, is that people go into the fog, they never come back, and that's because they got killed by the fog. And the thing that killed them in the fog is a very real thing that continues to be real even after the person's dead, and is now just a part of the fog, going around hunting other people. So it might be a pretend, like a thing that you look at and like someone who's not afraid of these things and is very familiar with the frog is still wary of these things, because this thing comes up and shows up, and sure, you could be like, oh, that one's probably just an illusion, I'm not going to react to it. But the truth of the matter is they probably will still like instinctively like try to stab it or keep it away from them. They're not scared of it, but they're being weary. Just because they also know, hey, sure, this thing is probably an illusion, but there is a chance that this thing could have been manifested by someone else. And for that reason, I'm going to poke it with a stick.
Yeah, caution
to keep its distance.
Yeah, caution and fear are not the same
two
thing.
Different things.
You
Yes.
can be cautious and still not be afraid. You can say, hey,
Again,
I know that's probably an illusion. It might be real. I don't think it is. I'm going to chuck a rock at it just to find out. Oh, dear goodness gracious, it's real. Okay, pull out the sword.
Yeah. It's another one of those, like, I see the mentor with his protege, and they're just wandering through, and this, like, giant thing comes in, and he just stabs it, turns around and just instantly stabs it, and the other person's like, how'd you know it was real? I wasn't even scared of it. It's like, look, things happen in the fog, and you can never be too sure. It might have been an illusion, but who knows? And just keeps on walking.
Yes.
I want to write, like, a short story that's just one person's first trip in the fog, and that's all it is. It's just like this old guy and this, 16, 17-year-old kid, and he's taking him on his first trip to the fog to maybe visit another town. and all the way they're getting like attacked by things, and this guy's just so calm and chill about all the fears, and he's giving like life advice to this kid as they're walking through, and they make it to the other town, and that's just the end of the story.
Yeah, it would probably make for a really good short story. But something I'm wondering about is the jump scare thing. So if you are very briefly genuinely like afraid of something, will it manifest? And then if you stop being afraid of something, will the thing suddenly become an illusion? Or does it stay real? Because I think it should stay real.
I was gonna say, it definitely stays real. If you get jump scared, you're stuck with that thing. That thing's real now. It's a tool the fog uses. Jump scares.
It just seems a little bit too overpowered.
Like jump scares.
Like if say like a serial killer comes at you and swings a axe at your neck or at your head or whatever, that's a sudden jump scare. And as soon as right before it hits your head, you're startled, you're scared, and then it manifests and you're dead. Like it just seems a little too overpowered for the fog when used properly. So I'm thinking maybe the the illusions become reality, but perhaps it takes a few seconds. Like maybe there's like a 5-second grace period essentially where the fog needs to take to actually.
Like you're instantly scared, right? And you look at it, and you see this thing coming. Instinctively, you have a moment of fear. The axe comes at you, but it passes straight through you. You have this moment of realizing, oh, it's just an illusion, but you're like, ah, shoot, it scared me. It's about to become real, and you have a moment to prepare yourself.
Yes.
That type of thing. So you have the classic ghost jump scare, but at the same time, it's almost also a warning jump scare for you, like, oh, this thing. And then I can also feel the fog, when the jump scare happens. And the person like registers the jump scare and he brings it alive, but then instantly kills the thing, then it's gonna try a different strategy eventually. Like it's gonna or the person eventually you become kind of desensitized to jump scares. At least that's what I noticed.
Assuming you spend much time in the fog.
Yeah, like watching people like play these things, they kind of become desensitized. And the thing is about the jump scares is the jump scares can literally, unless only really happen from illusion-based ones, because they're the only ones that can appear in front of you and try to kill you. One that's already alive and exists and that can kill you, you're gonna know it's coming usually, because it already exists. It can't like demanifest and then remanifest itself somewhere else. It has to, make its way to you. So you're gonna see one that might be real actually coming, while a jump scare will almost always, unless you're not paying attention, in which case that's your fault. You're in the fog, you should know better. It's not gonna kill you.
Yeah, so something I was wondering about, which do you think would be more common in this world? Traveling alone to reduce the amount of potential illusions becoming reality, or traveling in groups to fight off the illusions that become reality? And how big would these groups be if they did that?
They can't. I don't know. It's a good question. I also I don't know. Like the fog's limit in producing things as well.
Yeah, like can it create just things constantly, rapidly, or is it only able to create so much? Because I feel like it has to have a limit.
Yeah.
Otherwise, again, the fog is way too overpowered and would instantly kill anyone.
Yeah, it would just keep throwing things at you until you're so desensitized you don't think about it, and then at that point, the real thing comes in and kills you.
Maybe we could say that the fog is a slow thinker. It's got brain fog.
Yeah. I mean, that would make sense.
Yeah, I think that could be something that we could say. It doesn't instantly come up with a bunch of rapid ideas. It just sort of has this vague feeling of this person is probably afraid of this thing and create it. And it's not thinking of all these different interesting creative ways of destroying people. That's just not the nature of the fog. The nature of the fog is slow. It takes 5 seconds to actually manifest anything.
Yeah, it's not inventive. It's very much memory based. And if you're this giant thing with thousands and thousands of memories and associations with people, I could see it kind of goes through it more like a picture book than like we can go through all of our memory banks like instantly, draw back memories from 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years ago without like any trouble. But I don't think the fog is like that. I think the fog it's more like flipping through a picture book, and it's like, okay, this is my it has its go-tos, which it likes to start out with, and then it sees how a person reacts. Or maybe it's also just like a watcher. Like the fog likes to watch people. Maybe it's less about wanting its end goal might be to kill, but it's also a like it wants to constantly be learning, and it has this desire to study and analyze people to become a more effective killer. So it might honestly just enjoy watching people walk and like reading, getting vague senses of their thoughts and stuff. I don't think it can full out read your mind, but like picking up senses of things like, because you're in the fog, you're gonna instinctively think of things you're scared of unintentionally because it just happens. And it's just picking up little snippets and like building a portfolio. And maybe it needs like a person's aura or essence even to try to create an illusion. So it has to like spend time. A person has to spend time in the fog for the fog to gain enough power to even try something. And then if it fails, it has to build that back up again and try again. So you do get grace periods.
I do like
But
that idea of it. It only
yeah,
has so many. Like it can only attempt something once every so often.
but something I think that it can also keep in mind is that maybe the fog will occasionally, build up, and then it can do a bit of rapid fire. Like, so say like a guy is in the fog and it's been several hours and stuff, he might start getting worried that the fog is planning something big because it's taking so long. Like he could have like times and he'd be like, okay, I know that I've been in the fog an hour. I should be seeing something around now. If I don't, I'm gonna start getting a bit worried, and things like that. And that could build up fear, which could actually cause the fog to like feed on it more. So like this sense of dread could be something it also uses against people too.
So that does beg the question: what if someone's fear is the fog? Can the fog create more fog? Can that fog then create even more fog, which creates more fog, which creates more illusions, which creates more opportunities to scare someone? Can it create more things that it knows that the person is afraid of? What happens if the fog manifests the fog? Or does nothing happen because it's already the fog?
I think like nothing happens. It's kind of, I don't know. I want to like use a Harry Potter reference just because. Okay, so the Harry Potter, because Isaac doesn't know, but people will know. There's this creature called the Boggart, and it manifests itself out of like people's anxiety and fear. That's how it's created. And whenever you come across one, it takes on the form of your biggest fear and kind of attacks you with it. And so no one actually knows what a Boggart looks like. But a lot of people question, so what happens if your biggest fear is a Boggart? Like, then what do you get to see what it looks like then? But even then, it always kind of, no one actually knows. So my assumption is that it just goes into like the next biggest fear or something like that, or it switches it up. So I don't actually think it manifests more of itself because it's just itself.
Yeah, I think that sounds about right.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah,
think
you
that the
can't
fog
ask a
can.
shapeshifter to shapeshift into itself because that's just itself.
Yeah. So I think that makes sense. The fog, if you're afraid of the fog, it doesn't do anything. It just sits there like, yes, I know you're afraid of me. Now give me something else.
Again, it doesn't need to know your fears. It'll just experiment and try things.
Yeah.
You might be giving it less like info to go about, but at the same time, you're already nervous and scared, so it might be like, you're an easy target. I can throw anything I want at you, and you're going to be scared of it.
Now, we are running a little bit low on time, so real quick, I want to try and world build these cities.
Go back to the unicorns?
Back to the unicorns, I guess. So what is keeping the fog out of these cities and towns?
So I kind of like the magic sheep idea.
Okay.
I think it's kind of fun. For one, you can shear, you shear sheep and they're constantly growing wool. So these guys can constantly be expanding. But at the same time, wool is a resource when it gets wet or something like that. It can get moldy and deteriorate. So instead of people actually, focused on expanding, they could just be focused on maintenance with their sheep. Sheep are domesticatable, unlike a unicorn.
What if
so it makes sense they have them.
What if people were farming sheep, but the farms or like the pens or whatever were placed around the edge of the town, so the sheep keep on growing wool and they're living at along the edge of a city to keep the fog out.
Another also be, which could be an interesting story, is like that the sheep, if they almost have to be kept near the edge of the fog because they have to interact with the fog to get their property of being anti-fog. If that makes sense. Like, they need close, like, their shield, they have the shield, but at the edge of their shield, they're actually absorbing power from the fog and turning it into anti-fog.
So the best analogy I can think of is contracting a disease and then becoming immune.
Yes. Yeah, except they have a radius in which that's done. And it is done through their wool more than them, so you can remove the wool and you can transfer that about. But if you were to raise sheep and the city, say, the wool that they grow, like sheep inside the center of the city, isn't going to have any properties because the sheep aren't ever exposed to the fog.
It's just that the idea of sheep and wool absorbing fear fog, and then creating a magical force field around themselves to keep that fog away. Just, it feels weird, and so random.
Oh,
I like the concept and everything. It's just that it feels so random. Like, why sheep? Why wool?
Because wool is an easy resource to gather, and sheep are easy to domesticate, and therefore it is easy to build up these cities and maintain them. Yeah, the plants are boring.
Fair point.
Also, I think the fun idea of taking a sheep in with you as a shield is interesting too.
But wait, what if you were to shear the sheep and then make a wool coat?
Oh, true. Sheep might be overpowered.
Yeah, we spent all this time trying to make sure that the fog wasn't overpowered. Now we've given the sheep this overpowered ability. I feel like this might be a problem. Maybe it's only once the wool is sheared. Maybe once the wool is sheared, it loses its properties.
Do you have to keep living sheep around?
Yeah. And if you were to leave the city, you could bring a sheep with you. But maybe the is it possible that the sheep can only protect you for so long? You have only so long. The reason the sheep effects don't wear off or anything in the city is because there's a lot of them. And their power combined is what's able to keep fog out. But one sheep by itself will only last you so long. And so going into the fog is still a danger if you decide to make a long journey or if you get lost.
I'm trying to think of it. Even then, it seems like, people just bring flocks of sheep in between cities.
True. Yeah, people would still bring
I'm trying to think what would be a reason, what is a thing that could only be maintained in a city that can't be transported with it, but so that brings the idea of a wall again instead of a big circle.
Magic crystals.
But then
magic crystals. You got some gigantic magic crystals that are growing out of the ground, and people set them up around the edge of the city. These crystals they emit a small force field that pushes the fog back, and if you leave the city, you can't take them with you because they're gigantic. However, maybe if you want to go with the whole same thing that we were doing with the sheep, you could maybe take a small piece of one with you, but it will only protect you for so long.
Or maybe even it doesn't protect you at all. If you take it from the source dies. It's a giant one that's very hard to move. You can, but it's extremely hard. It's extremely difficult. It takes a lot of manpower. But if you were to chip something off from the main source, then it would just not work.
So
Which almost gives the idea that if you find certain materials, you could actually add to it instead. Like, continue to grow the force field around, which could explain why there's some really big cities and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that could work. But something else I was thinking about was, let's say your city keeps on populating, your town or whatever, and it's getting pretty full. You need an area to go and do something like, say, farming. Farming takes up a large area, a large piece of land. And so what I'm thinking is, this is just a little bit of like maybe a cultural thing that we could world build in there, and societal thing. What if there were farms in the fog, and if you are a farmer and that is your occupation, that is seen as like an amazing thing to be. Like, you are praised so much if you are a farmer, because you are going into the fog. That is a dangerous place to go, and you are able to go in there fearless and do your farming and then come back. Like, that could be, let's see, like right now people say, oh, you're a farmer, okay, whatever. Like it's not seen as anything like super praiseworthy, even though that is where we get all of our food. But in this instance, it would be, you're a farmer, man, you're amazing, that is incredible. Like, that would just be everyone's natural reaction.
I think there's something else that's kind of interesting here, is honestly using people's phobias to get food. Like, if you go out there and your fear is something like deer or something like that, like, say you have a child and you actually raise the child to be terrified of deer.
That sounds incredibly abusive and just terrible.
Doesn't it? I think it's an interesting concept for a world. That's all I'm putting out there. You know, I have to have one of these like sadistic, horrifying concepts for a world, or else it's not one of our podcasts. Anyways, you have like a child and you've trained it to be absolutely terrified of deer, and then you send it out in the fog with like hunters, and then now you have a child who, like, the fog is happy because it's like creating things, and that's its purpose in life, is to create things out of fear. The child is scarred for the rest of its life, but the hunters get a ton of meat, and that's one of the few ways they can like mass produce meat and stuff and feed themselves too. But yeah, you're right, it's also horribly, terribly cruel.
Okay,
but
so
there are people in this world who would do it.
I'll be honest, I did think about it earlier when we were talking about the phobias, but I didn't mention it because I knew it would turn into just another dystopia. And I'm like, we have enough of those. I just want to figure out how these guys would humanely live in this fog.
That's why I'm putting it at the end as like a thought, like for people who want to write about this world or use it. Here's an interesting story element. I personally prefer the ideas of like a more peaceful, and if I was to write in this world, I would write like the moral, almost folktale feel story of the old man and this young child going through the fog, and him teaching the child life lessons via a trip.
That seems like the best story that you can get out of this.
I think that's an amazing story. I might write it. We'll see. It's definitely like one of the stories, like few stories where I'm really itching to write it. But I find the concept of people using other people's fears for the betterment of society interesting.
Also, I gotta mention, what happens, like, let's say you do have that phobia of, say, deer. I feel like eventually this person might get to a point where they will either, one, mentally break down and just, go insane, or two, just stop being afraid, and then people lose their source of fear or food because they got used to seeing deer.
That's why you're just constantly raising kids.
I guess.
It's like I said, it's not something I would like. I would like to think better of people, but at the same time, not all people are good.
If you want to make one of the cities do that and the rest are all, not inhumane monsters, I think that could work.
Look, a world where the people are worse than the fog of fear itself is just It's a good story. I can't help it. The good stories are the dark
I think
ones.
it can work. I think it could be a good story. I just prefer the old man and the mentor teaching this
No,
kid
that
not to be
that one's
afraid.
the one I want to write.
That one seems way better to me and way more fun and way more interesting.
That's because it's kind of wholesome. Like,
Yeah.
it's dark, it's edgy, but it's still wholesome at the core. Well, the other one is just, like, sadistic and dark. And it is another dystopian, you know? But it's interesting.
Yeah, so
And it's
hey, by the way, these worlds are free to use. If you want to use them in your own writing, go right ahead. But now you've got two different options. You could go with your more wholesome story, or you could go with your dark and sadistic story. Your choice.
actually, like, in the comments, tell us which one you would rather write. I'm intrigued. I want to know, like, what our audience feels. See if anyone buds on it.
I hope we don't have, like, a super evil, dark-minded, sadistic audience that, like, if most people say,
okay,
"Oh yeah, I want the sadistic story,"
whoa.
I'm gonna be like, I'm scared now.
Yeah, well, look, just because you write dark, sadistic things does not make you dark and sadistic. Okay, just because I
not
came
dark
up
and
with
sadistic.
look, I would like to think that I would never raise a child to be scared of deer so I could get some meat. I'd hope I'm above that. Okay, but did I just come up with the idea? And, like, could I write an entire story in which other people in my book did that? Yes, but that doesn't mean I would ever do that or would ever encourage other people to do it. In fact, I would write it in such a way to discourage people to do that and to point out why this is wrong and, like, point it to other things in the world that are wrong and that we should stop doing.
Oh, okay. Suddenly I feel a lot more comfortable because the entire time I knew you, I thought that you were just waiting for an opportunity to murder me in my sleep.
I mean, I never said I wasn't.
I
think we should end the podcast.
Leave it there. I have a very long discussion with Casey after this episode. Goodbye. Goodbye, all.
Bye.
Adios.